I'm not here today because I stand out or because I'm unique. In fact, for several years I was just one of the millions of Australians that experience persistent pain, also known as chronic pain, which is commonly defined as pain that lasts for longer than 3 months or past normal healing time. I'm here because I became curious about my pain, and that took me on a journey that changed my understanding and experience of pain, and it also changed my life. I'm here in the hope that you too will become curious about pain. Now, aside from this lived experience, I'm a wife and a mother and a police officer and a runner. I wasn't naturally gifted at running, and I only took it up in my 30s, but I became what some people call irritatingly passionate about running. And I went on to run marathons, ultra marathons, and then Ironman events. There's a quote that says, "Running a marathon is a journey of 1,000 kilometres. The race is just the last 42. And I think that's accurate because all the hard work happens in the training. That's where you build your mind and body strength. I had 3 key elements to my approach to endurance events: education, planning, and training. With the education, I learnt about technique and my body's needs and capabilities. For the planning, I often used the expertise of a coach, an expert who could understand me and work with me to devise a training plan to achieve my goal. And then the training was all down to me, because the coach can give you all the advice they like, but they don't do the running for you. And I loved every minute of it. But like most runners, I got some injuries along the way. Most of you here at some time would have had an injury, whether running related or not, that saw you go to the doctor to get some advice on management. So just imagine you follow that advice, but your discomfort grows, and you start experiencing pain that doesn't feel normal. So you go back to the doctor, get a scan done. The results are a bit inconclusive, so you start reaching out to some other healthcare providers. And yes, it's always worth trying massage and acupuncture and oils and all sorts of stimulants, but nothing helps. So you move on to cortisone injections, opioid medications, even nerve blocks. Before you know it, you're seeing a surgeon and you're having surgery done, and your pain doesn't go away. And now you're really scared because the pain is moving and it's growing, and it's now in both sides of your body, and it hurts to sit and it hurts to stand, and sometimes it burns and it stabs and it radiates. You stop going to work and social events, and your world becomes smaller and scarier. You start having panic attacks and you become obsessed with your pain. You're constantly Googling your symptoms, thinking this has to be something terrible. And you turn to your doctor, desperately asking them to find what's wrong and make it stop. And they can't. And you have no answers and no relief. That was my reality just a few years ago. From the development of a minor running injury, I went from running marathons to feeling unable to walk to my front gate without being in significant pain. And that's spiralled into 2 years of medications, medical procedures, and depression. The rest of my life at that point was looking pretty grim. That's when I became curious about pain. And I read and I watched and I listened to every reliable source that I could find. Notably those I found through the Pain Revolution and Pain Australia, until I discovered what was wrong, which was nothing. Well, nothing in the sense that I no longer had physical injuries. my body had healed. My pain was very real, but it didn't relate to damage in my body. Now, there are some great TED Talks from pain experts that explain how persistent pain works in a clinical sense. But from my perspective, my brain had developed an opinion that I was in danger, and it was sending me warning messages in the form of pain. Normally, these messages are a good thing. It's an evolutionary protection system which is designed to keep us alive. But in some cases, the brain gets overprotective and it can keep sending these messages even when we don't need them anymore. Typically, we think of pain as a symptom of an injury or illness, but it's not always the case. Psychological and social factors can play a part in the development and intensity of pain, meaning that the amount of pain we feel may depend on the context in which we experience it, and it may also depend on our own personal beliefs about pain. Our brains store information about everything that we see, hear, and do, and it uses that information to form opinions about many things, like our favourite colour or what type of music we like, and also about whether we're in danger. If your brain forms an opinion, which is essentially its best guess, that you're in danger, it might send a warning to the body. And that might be the hair standing up on your arms, or breaking out in a sweat before you come on this stage, or it could be pain. Fear, stress, anxiety, depression can feed and amplify those pain messages. And this was the first breakthrough moment in my recovery, where I understood that the pain I was feeling, which was very real, was no longer related to damage in my body. But why had my brain formed this opinion? In the 5 years leading up to this time, I had experienced 2 painful, traumatic, and life-threatening incidents. I had a brain hemorrhage, and almost 2 years later, I was hit by a vehicle while I was cycling, resulting in some serious injuries. I'd been a police officer for more than 20 years, which comes with its own accumulation of trauma. And if you haven't already guessed, I am a type A personality, a perfectionist with fairly high self-expectations. So add to that the anxiety I felt because I couldn't run, and the fear that I had about the pain, it's little wonder that my brain was on high alert and sensing danger everywhere. But once I understood that, I needed to learn how to fix it. And just because you understand pain doesn't mean that it goes away. And there is no magic pill. Medication might have a place, but for the most part, it will address symptoms and not cause. So how to reassure my brain that I'm safe? Well, as we've already heard today, the brain is a really adaptive bit of kit. And the more that you practice a new task, the better the brain adapts to perfect that skill. And I had spent a lot of time practicing pain. But just as you can train your brain to wind up the pain without even knowing that it's happening, you can consciously train the brain to wind it back, using that process we've heard about today, neuroplasticity. And luckily for me, training's something I know a lot about. Instead of training my body to run a long distance, I just needed to train my brain to reduce my pain. And this was the second breakthrough moment where I made a conscious and deliberate decision to change my approach to pain from passive to active. I stopped seeing my body as broken and dysfunctional And I just became grateful for this amazing organ that was trying way too hard to protect me, and it needed some retraining. To do that retraining, I returned to a process I'd relied on many times before, my education, planning and training. And I had the education part down, but I wanted a coach, a pain-informed expert to help me reduce my pain. And this could be a doctor, a physio, a local pain educator, an occupational therapist. It might depend who you have access to, but they must be well informed about pain. For me, that person was an exercise physiologist. And a pain coach, like a run coach, they don't do the work for you. You have to be the active participant in your pain recovery. And a pain plan, like a run plan, it's specific to you, your life, your goals. My plan involved what I dubbed the MASS approach: movement, acknowledgement, self-talk and support. Movement is medicine, and returning to physical activity in a safe and gradual way restores confidence, and it reassures the brain that you're safe. Pacing your return to physical activity allows you to avoid the boom and bust scenarios, and it puts in place contingencies if you have a pain flare-up. It's also just great for brain health, as are general well-being factors like good sleep and nutrition and social connection. Acknowledgement means an acceptance that psychological and social factors can be drivers of your pain, and they might need some expert attention in the form of therapies or mindfulness or whatever it is that's relevant to your situation. Self-talk is critical to reversing those pain messages to the brain. For me, that meant simple, repetitive reminders to myself that I was safe. And I would literally say to my brain, "Hey buddy, got the pain message. I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I don't need you, I'm safe." And support in the form of family, friends and work colleagues who understand your approach to pain and are there to cheer you on is also really helpful. Now, just like training for a marathon, training your brain does not happen overnight. In my typical style, I wanted to recover faster and better than anyone else had ever done, and it just didn't happen like that. It was more like running mountain ranges. You have ups and downs, and you have self-doubt and setbacks, but you also reach wonderful milestones and moments of triumph. And month by month, my pain lessened, and I got a little bit of my life back as my brain adapted and trusted that I was safe. And several years have passed now, and I am back running marathons. I still get pain from time to time that is not associated with injury or illness, but I understand why it's happening. It's usually when I'm under a lot of stress, and I don't fear it. And instead of running mountains to wind it back, it's often just a bit of a jog around the block. It was confronting to think that the origin of that pain was literally in my head. But this wasn't a medical breakthrough. The role of the brain in pain has been documented for decades. Think of things like sympathy labour pain or phantom limb pain. What surprised me was that for the dozens of healthcare practitioners I had seen, very few investigated this possibility with me. They were treating a body that had healed, but not exploring what was happening in my brain. And there's a missed opportunity when we don't at least consider that possibility. And people can spend years of their life in pain, like me, because they're not given access to the pain education and empowerment to actively change that experience. Now, as I said at the start, I'm not here because my story is unique. I'm here because it's not. It's estimated that 1 in 5 Australians live with persistent pain. It is a leading cause of workplace absenteeism, of premature retirement, of disability and poor mental health. How many people do you know that have persistent pain that limits what they do? Back pain, knee pain, migraines, arthritis, maybe that's you. Now I'm curious, how many of these people can reduce or eliminate that pain by having access to pain education and resources? There's an opportunity here for people who have acute pain to limit their pain experience or prevent the development of persistent pain by getting the right information at the right time. I'm not here to tell you that this is the answer for everyone who's in pain. What I'm saying is, if you experience persistent pain, then I invite you to become curious about why. Becoming curious about your pain, it could change your life too. Thank you.